Just invite the minister. And perhaps we will try and I have requested the minister to keep his speech rather short so that we can keep more time for question answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Sood. Excellencies and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm extremely sorry for being late. When you are caught by the journalist, at times it becomes really difficult to get out of it. So I'm sorry. As Ambassador Sood suggested, I don't want to read out the written text.
If you give us a copy, we can circulate.
Yes, I think that would be a good idea. So what I'll do is briefly explain you about the current developments in Nepal-India relations. Before I jump into that specific area, I would like to briefly touch upon the current political development in Nepal. I'm sure all of you are fully aware that we are passing through the most difficult time, especially the last 2 decades had been very painful, starting from the Maoist insurgency in 1996 to 2006, followed by chaotic transition of almost 10 years, and then the devastating earthquake last year, April 25th, followed by several aftershocks. But that earthquake somehow helped us also, although it caused severe damage in all aspects of Nepal's life, especially in terms of economy. Almost 9,000 people were killed. It was estimated that $7 billion loss in national economy. But that indirectly helped Nepal to come out with a constitution. To bring the Maoist in the mainstream, we agreed on a consensus mechanism of Constituent Assembly. Drafting the Constitution through Constituent Assembly was the agreed formula between the Maoist and other mainstream political forces. But the first round of the Constituent Assembly failed. We had to go on for another round of election. So we spent almost 8 years, but we were not able to draft the constitution. But after the massive earthquake, realizing the urgency of the hour, all political parties decided that we need the constitutions at the earliest possible date. So we drafted the constitution and accordingly promulgated by the president of the country on September 20th last year. After the promulgation of the constitution, Nepal has now entered into a new phase of economic development and prosperity. All political parties, including the main opposition, ruling parties, have a common view that to consolidate the achievements that has been achieved so far, we need to concentrate on economic development and the prosperity of the Nepalese people. In fact, after the promulgation of the constitution, some sections of the Nepalese society, especially the political parties representing Tarai, Madhes area, are not happy. And I'm sure that people like you understand that nowhere in the world any constitution can claim that it is 100% perfect. Our constitution is also not perfect. But it's a living, dynamic, and amendable document. To be very frank with you, I'm also not happy. And my party, the fourth largest party in the parliament, voted against the constitution because some of our fundamental principles were not incorporated in the constitution. But when it was approved by not only two-thirds majority, but overwhelming majority of 82%, we accepted the verdict. And we also signed the document, the constitution. There are some political parties who are not happy. The government, the ruling parties, and the main opposition have decided that we need to address the grievances of the agitating political parties through negotiation and resolve it within the framework of the constitution. We have already initiated that process. We have gone through several rounds of negotiation. Out of the four major issues raised by the agitating political parties, two are almost resolved, and how much flexible our new constitution is can be judged by the first amendment that has taken place within 4 months of the promulgation of the constitution. There is one remaining major issue, that's the demarcation of the provinces. It's a very contentious issue. Nepal decided to go in for federal system of polity. That's a new concept for Nepal. And it's a very difficult one also. But in that issue also, we have agreed, even with the agitating political parties, that a political committee will be formed with a mandate of 3 months to come out with a political consensus so that the constitution can be amended as suggested by the political committee. So I believe that we will be able to resolve this crisis also. For a country like Nepal, which had the first test of democracy back in 1951, we have not been able so far to establish a permanent political system. We have gone through almost half a dozen constitutions in the past, but we have not been able to have a permanent constitution. This is the first constitution drafted by the people's representative. We hope that it will last. And I'm very happy to inform this August gathering that Nepal is the second country after India in South Asia to draft the constitution through Constituent Assembly. So when the constitution was promulgated, we naturally thought that our next door neighbor, the closest neighbor, the largest democracy in the world, will be the first one to congratulate us, to encourage us, and give us a patting on the back that at least finally you have come up with a constitution. After all, India has always been a valued partner in our transition to democracy. Now, after the promulgation of the constitution, since Nepal has now entered into a new phase of economic development, we are looking forward for international support and encouragement, especially from our immediate neighbors. I'm very happy to inform you that despite some initial hiccups, irritants, or misunderstandings, now we have excellent relations with India. We are back on track. Our ambassador was informing me this morning that for June and July alone, 13 bilateral meetings are lined up. That in itself speaks that the relations between Nepal and India is back on track. We would like to further strengthen it. We are very happy to see that India is rapidly progressing, especially under the dynamic leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We can see a rapid economic progress. We want to take advantage of that. We see our interest in that. Similarly, our northern neighbor is also emerging has already emerged, in fact, as a global economic power. There has been tremendous changes even in our vicinity, just close to our border. So we also would like to take advantage of that nation's progress also. After all, we believe that common prosperity, shared prosperity is the best guarantee of peace, stability, and democracy in the region. That is what we are striving for, and we look forward for a continuous, cordial, friendly relations with both our neighbors. And at the same time, we also would like to emphasize that relations between nations are not comparable. Our relations with India is unique in itself, special in itself. It cannot be compared with any relations. Each country has its own dynamics and characteristics. So accordingly, we try to develop our relations with countries in the region and in the world. This is what I think I have been brief enough now.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Minister. And may I now open the floor for discussion? I know we are close to, but we'll extend it by about 15 minutes so that we have about 15 minutes for discussion. I would request you to please identify yourself when you ask a question. And in the interests of time, may I request that please don't make comments. I think it would be more productive if you actually ask specific questions to the minister so that we can have the maximum benefit of his presence here this evening.
Thank you, Excellency, for the outline of the Nepal's present political dynamics.
Please identify yourself. I mean, I know who you are, but
I have a lot of interest in Nepal. I have two very short questions. One, your party's agenda, yours and your party's agenda, is the revival of monarchy and Hindu Rashtra. Now, you are in coalition with the people who don't like these two issues, and they are outright opponents of these two issues. How comfortable you are in the coalition, and how long do you think this kind of an arrangement can continue? Secondly, Your Excellency, you are tomorrow giving a convocation address at the South Asian University. I guess your president was to come for that. The program was
President was supposed to come for the laying of the foundation.
not for the convocation. Okay, I take this question.
okay. Thank you. We'll take another two questions. Yes, you had a question.
Thanks, Excellency.
Could you come closer to the mic because we are recording it? Excuse me, there's a mic here on the table. Yeah.
Thank you, Excellency. My name is Kamal Augustine, I would like to ask something about your talks with the government here in Delhi, in India. Can you tell us a little bit about what exactly brings you here to Delhi and sort of the scope and content of your talks here? I think there was also a committee on security or something. So if you could just help us understand what exactly is today's issue. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, my name is Alfonso Stoelinga. I'm ambassador of the Netherlands. We are very much involved in the reconstruction of Nepal after the earthquake. I would like to ask you the role of the National Reconstruction Authority at the moment, because when I was there in January, I heard a lot about the NRA taking up its role, and how is it going at the moment? Thank you.
I think we'll come around for Mr. Minister, why don't you?
How comfortable I am being in the government. Well, I'm quite comfortable because this coalition is not based on a common ideology. Our common platform is Constitution, in which I also have faith. See,
You voted against this.
yes, we voted against this constitution, but we have accepted it because it's not that we have accepted all the provisions of the constitution. See, we have accepted with reservation. Secondly, this constitution, despite some shortcomings, I'm very happy to inform this August gathering. There are certain shortcomings. I agree on that. But this constitution has incorporated all the universally accepted democratic norms and values. Individual and political party can have free choice of their ideology. Freedom of expression, freedom of opinion, and it has been guaranteed that political parties will not be banned on the basis of its ideology. Third, a periodic election. Fourth, a flexible amendment provisions. It's very interesting. You can have your own faith, party will not be banned, provision of periodic election, and a flexible constitutional amendment provision. That is the attraction for all the political forces. That is the common, I think, platform. So, because of these provisions of the Constitution, no political parties have to raise guns again because nothing is unchangeable. In the previous Constitution, the 1990 Constitution, some issues, some principles were written that it would remain as unamendable. But the present Constitution guarantees that everything is amendable if you have the support of the people. So if you are not happy, you're not satisfied, if your agenda are not incorporated in the Constitution, you don't have to go to jungle and raise guns. You don't have to sit in the nakas, border points, and penalize the people. If you have faith on the people, go to the people during the election, put forward your agenda to the people, get their votes, and amend it. So it is because of that reason we are quite comfortable being in the government, because this provision is not restricted or limited by being in the government. And one more thing I would like to add at this point is, as I said, there are certain flaws, certain shortcomings which need to be rectified, amended, but so far the inclusive or the proportional representation is concerned, I can claim with authority that Nepal's constitution is progressive and forward-looking. I'm ready to compare with any constitutions in the world in that matter regarding the inclusiveness and the proportional representation is concerned. I'm here, my visit this time, this is my 5th visit in last 8 months. I'm here this time to participate in the convocation ceremony of the South Asia University, which is going to be held tomorrow. I will definitely meet Indian leaders and government officials during my visit. I'm returning back on Sunday. So far, the reconstruction is concerned. I accept that it took some time because of so many reasons, of which I don't want to go into details. It took some time, but now we are on track. The Parliament has passed a legislation. We have a reconstruction legislation. And as provided in the law, we have formed a high-level National Reconstruction Authority. Necessary homeworks has almost been completed, and the reconstruction has now already started. We have also prepared a 5-year post-disaster recovery framework. So as provided in that framework, the reconstruction would be completed within 5 years. In first 2 years, all the private houses will be reconstructed, and other remaining constructions, highways, schools, school buildings, and other reconstruction will be completed within 5 years. Thank you.
And you said that there is circumstantial evidence which would suggest this. I would like, sir, for you to elaborate that. Did China play a role in Nepal's internal politics in May? My second question, sir, is why is it that members of your government, including Deputy Prime Ministers C.P. Mainali, Chitra Bahadur Kesi, have systematically stoked anti-Indian sentiment and blamed the Madhesi issue on India? Is there an effort to externalize what is an internal political problem?
Interview is concerned. In fact, the first and the second question was interrelated. So my answer was not only to the second one, but also to the first one. So am I clear?
So circumstantial evidence
This is for both. Yes. That is what circumstances evidence. I don't have any evidence to prove that, but there are people who believe in it. I don't have any comment on that. That is what I've said, that that is circumstance evidence. So far, the DPM or the leaders of different political parties' comments towards India is concerned. Well, yes, there has been some comments from leaders of different political parties, including the members in the government. I'm sure you must have noticed that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs have, at the appropriate time, have refuted those comments and has clearly stated that those views are not official government views. Political parties, depending upon their ideological background, you know how much our society is politicized. That is one very serious problem that we are facing. The society is so heavily politicized. I think it will take time. before we can bring back everything on track. Regarding your question, the new phase, the new chapter, what I'm trying to say is that we have wasted precious times in past. Almost 2 decades, 10 years of insurgency and 10 years of chaotic transition. Not only time, but that has a tremendous impact in all sections of our society. Economy has been badly affected. To be very frank, the very fabric of national survival is also under threat. So, after the promulgation of the Constitution, I again would like to emphasize that this is not 100% perfect. Nowhere in the world, even Indian Constitution has gone through several amendments. It is an amendable Constitution, but let us give it a chance. It would be in the interest of the international community, our both neighbors, to see and ensure peace, stability, and democracy in Nepal. A stable, peaceful, and democratic Nepal will be in the broader interest of the international community as well as the regional fraternity. So in that context, we are emphasizing that the new chapter has begun. And our focus now should be on economic development. Because in the past also, when there has been political change, we had the first taste of democracy in 1951. There has been political change at different times, but we have not been able to consolidate it. It is because political change did not follow. The economic progress didn't follow the political change. So this time around, we would like to see to it that the political change is consolidated, the constitution is implemented. If it is implemented, everyone will have chance. I'm glad that Professor Muni has rightly pointed out my position. See, why I'm insisting on the consolidation of the political change? Why I'm insisting in the implementation of the Constitution? First and foremost, that would be in the broader interest, larger interest of the country. Secondly, for me also and for my party also, if there is a stability, if there is election, then only I can go to the people and get support to my agenda. Otherwise, if there is no political stability, no election, periodic election, I have to go back again. It will be very difficult. So that is why we are insisting on the implementation. And we are also requesting to the international community, and especially with our neighbors, and especially with India, because of so many reasons. I don't have to go into details. India can play a very important, significant role in consolidating Nepal's political change. So it is because of that reason we are talking about the second phase up here, I think.
Mr. Minister, you mentioned that the reconstruction work has now picked up. Now, we read there was about $4.4 billion that was committed last June when you had the international conference. we keep reading that a lot of that money, because of the budgetary cycles, is no longer available or may need to be apportioned or, re-requisitioned. So how much of the 4.4 billion that was at that time pledged has the Reconstruction Authority been able to make use of so far? And secondly, you made a very interesting point. You said economic progress did not follow the political change in the past. You said the first taste of democracy in 1951 and then subsequent developments, but economic progress did not follow the political change. So why do you think that now, with so much political polarization, you use the word politicization of society, why do you think that this time economic progress will be possible? Because today the politicization is much greater than what it was before.
Regarding the reconstruction, it has now already begun, and we are quite optimistic that we'll be able to complete the reconstruction within the time period. But definitely, as you have rightly pointed out, that there is a deficit of funds. Initially, we estimated that almost 7 billion loss was incurred, and accordingly, it was presented at the International Donors Conference, and there was a praise of 4 billion plus support. But now our revised estimate shows that we need almost 8 billion. So out of the 4 billion places, almost 3 billion has now been, it has come at the government.
The reconstruction?
Yeah, for the reconstruction, yes. Almost 3 billion. 2.89 something it was last month, but probably it might have reached 3 billion. That fund is enough for the initial work, but eventually when we move in a full swing, we will have a shortage of resources. So government of Nepal has requested the international community, if necessary, we will hold again the international donors meeting at an appropriate time and appropriate level, and request for the enhancement of their support. And the second question about the politicization and the polarizations, how can economic progress can follow? Yes, it's a very pertinent question, Your Excellency. I also don't have definite answer to that. I'm really worried about now. Politicization, political consciousness is nothing unusual, but because of so many reasons, our society has become heavily politicized. The society itself has politically polarized. But why I am optimistic is simply because there is a realization, even among the top political leadership, that enough is enough. Now we need to rectify. We need to focus. That realization at the policy making level, I see a silver lining. Secondly, there is a tremendous pressure at the grassroots level, at the people's level. Now, there were times, early 90s, or after the restoration of multi-party democracy in 1990, when people used to see political leaders as a vanguard of change. But now their trust towards politicians and political leaders and their ideological rhetoric, there is no attraction among the people. There is no support for such rhetoric now. So that pressure at the grassroots level, I think political leaders and parties cannot ignore. That's why I'm optimistic that in days ahead, we are quite hopeful that we'll be able to achieve economic progress and prosperity. And third one, which I think is also very equally important when we look at it in a strategic perspective. Now, our both neighbors, they are rapidly making progress. And Nepal is situated, sometimes we call it sandwiched between two big, now prosperous nations. I keep on telling people when I go to my constituency and to districts, I tell them that as a small hut cannot keep its existence longer, situated in between high-rise buildings. You also have to grow. Otherwise, the two high-rise buildings might create create a threat to your existence. So Nepal also have to grow. And economic progress is probably should be the strategic focus of Nepal. That's why I think we should be quite hopeful.
Well, I'm glad to hear.
Before you conclude, Your Excellency,
I'm glad to hear that you're optimistic. I think we are now at 5:15. If there are no more questions, then maybe I will just like to take this opportunity to thank the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister for having come here and spent time with us. I know that you have the convocation address to do tomorrow, and hopefully you will have meetings with your counterpart and perhaps
the
a meeting with also the Prime Minister. And it is encouraging news that that you mentioned. I think this is the first time I have heard that $2.89 billion of the pledge has actually now been transferred to the Reconstruction Authority, which is a very good beginning. So once again, Mr. Minister, I thank you for your time, and may I invite all of you to join us for a cup of tea.
Before we go, I have brought a constitution translated into English. This could be, probably could be.
We'll keep it in our library.
Yeah, I